Hey, everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Alonso and Christy, Matt is existing. And we're talking about the new Val Kilmer documentary by, for, and about Val Kilmer. It's called Val. It's in theaters now, and it will be on Amazon Prime real soon. Next week?
Very
soon.
I think, yes. So Val Kilmer, from his earliest days as an actor, and even before that, because we see some home movies of him as a child growing up here in Chatsworth in the Valley, has shot home video of everything behind the scenes. This is very similar to the
Kid
Soleil
90.
Moonfry movie, Kid 90, but with like much more interesting people and much more deeply talented people. And so he has his son, Jack, who is also an actor, narrate this because throat cancer has stripped him of his ability to speak in the warm, mellifluous tones we are accustomed from Val Kilmer. And when he does speak, when we do see him in present day footage, he sounds like this and he talks through a hole in his voice. And so it's a combination of looking back at his career and trying to understand what his inspiration has been, his motivation has been, and then now still struggling to remain relevant, struggling with the enormity of the realization that his career really is over, and how does he still function? You see him going to like Comic-Con type events and signing pictures of himself as Batman or over and over again. And a lot of the time it's really illuminating as far as the work he put into creating certain roles and how much he went after, like playing Jim Morrison in The Doors, for example, and how it cost him his marriage, and so there's some interesting revelations in that. We see some really cool stuff behind the scenes on Top Gun. We see some really cool stuff behind the scenes on the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes.
Fascinating, juicy stuff with Marlon Brando. Oh, it's so good. And John Frankenheimer. It was really, really cool. And then just some of the present day stuff and him just looking back with some regret, but also like, it's not exactly warts and all, because while he addresses the overarching theme of his persona, that he is difficult to work with, there is no acknowledgement of that as a potential negative. It's more like he has other voices.
Care too much.
Right. And then he has other voices like Robert Downey Jr., with whom he co-starred in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is such a great film. And such a great use of Val Kilmer's like comic timing and his swagger and all that. Saying it's not that you're hard to work with, it's just that you care too much, right? You just take the work really seriously. And so if you're looking for warts and all, you're not going to get it, but it's a really interesting behind the scenes kind of look. And it's ultimately very sad, very moving, I thought.
It is. I mean, like, weirdly, I would forget from time to time that he wasn't narrating. Like, his son Jack does such a, it's not like he's impersonating or anything, but like they sound so much alike, and it's so heartfelt that it was like, I would, every so often they would show him in the booth and they're like, oh yeah, right, because Val can't with the thing anymore. Yeah, this movie is like, it's like half insightful and poignant and interesting and introspective, and then kind of half what I would just sort of call actor bullshit, like there are moments where you're like, okay, this is why sometimes like actors on talk shows, you're like, please don't talk about your process. I don't want to know. But I think he's very open about the fact that, like, being an actor, you're very vulnerable in terms of like, you have to go out and chase the work sometimes. Like, he includes these auditions that he videotaped that no one asked for, but that he just did because he wanted to try and, impress the director, for like Full Metal Jacket and Goodfellas.
Interesting.
Which is like kind of, that's pretty vulnerable for an actor to be like, I chased after these jobs and didn't get them, And
it's interesting too to see his take on like the narration of Goodfellas, which is so intrinsically like part of it. And you only hear Ray Liotta, of course, but then to hear a different voice try to bring that all to life is a fascinating kind of alternate universe.
Yeah. He talks about like getting cast in Slab Boys on Broadway, and he had the first lead, and then like Kevin Bacon became available, so he got bumped to the second lead, and then Sean Penn became available and he got bumped to the third lead, like stuff like that. Like, he's it's very frank about this stuff. He talks about how like he basically had this enormous amount of land in New Mexico that he wanted to turn into like some sort of like arts retreat, and he wanted to leave it to his children, and he decided instead to sell it so he could fund this Mark Twain movie that he wanted to make, and he was doing the Mark Twain live shows to fund this movie that he wanted to make. And then he has throat cancer. And now he can't be in that movie anymore. And it's like, that's heartbreaking. That's a huge thing. But, I don't know. There were, as with the Kid 90s stuff, I would have loved it if another filmmaker had collaborated with him and be like, well, let's keep this and let's toss that.
They're directors. Ting Poo and Leo Scott directed this. And
there are directors. Okay.
Co-edited it. Yeah. So there are directors.
Okay. I take that back then.
But they, because Soleil Moonfry actually directed.
She did direct Kid 90. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't direct this, but it does quite frequently feel as if he may as well have done that.
Yeah, I'm so frankly surprised that you're telling me this. I thought for sure this was just his, because it feels so first person and so like what he wants to share, Well,
maybe that's again the thing, as we've seen with so many documentaries, whether it's Michelle Obama or John Lewis or what was the one
Tina Turner
did? Well, yeah, but who was the one we just did? Oh, you didn't see the Pink movie, I don't think. The Pink movie is essentially an infomercial for Pink, but like you get the access,
right?
And that's great, but it's perhaps at the expense of actual, like a critical eye.
Yeah, the 800-pound gorilla gets what they want,
I enjoyed it though.
No, I found it really interesting. I mean, as with anything else, like, when he disses Real Genius as fluff, I'm like, dude, come on. He disses Top Secret as fluff. He doesn't even talk about Real Genius, which I was admittedly a little disappointed by.
I love Real Genius.
I would have liked less doors and more Real Genius, but that's just me. This is the story he wants to tell. But it is that thing of like how, like, both like Barbara Streisand for years thought that like What's Up Doc was sort of beneath her and like, a waste of time. It's like, no, it's one of the best things you ever did, and it makes me crazy sometimes when performers don't have enough of a perspective about their own work to sort of understand that, yes, you weren't bleeding on screen, but you're still doing something really that people respond to, and it's really hard. Like comedy is really hard, and it shouldn't be sort of diminished that way.
And the kind of comedy that Real Genius and like Top Secret are, is really tough, and it's verbal and it's controlled. Like his Real Genius performance, like the beauty of it is that it's in that like dry, deadpan kind of like Chevy Chase, Bill Tim Murray. Matheson, and now Ryan Reynolds vein of like, it's understated and that's why it's so fucking funny. And I think that's harder to do than being like wildly physical and broad.
I did a Q&A with Kilmer for when Palo Alto opened, and I could definitely, it was with him and the director, and I could tell that he's one of those people where he doesn't enter your world, you enter his, and so this is definitely his world, and he's all, and again, like talking about things that he's being frank about, like he talks about how like, I think a lot of actors think that showing up at these autograph things are sort of beneath them, but like it's something that I'm doing, and you can see how it's physically and emotionally wearing, like when dude after dude like wants him to sign the Top Gun photo with the same thing. It's like, oh god, I that's got to be exhausting by the end of it.
It'd be exhausting even if you were suffering from throat cancer and you were physically
exactly on top of everything else. So I think this is a film worth seeing, whether or not you're like a giant fan of Val Kilmer. It is very insightful about like how acting works, how the industry works. You see these sort of tragedies of his childhood that kind of shaped a lot of his life. He's very frank about like some financial stuff that his father kind of inveigled him into. So I mean, there is a lot of it that does feel very frank and very forthcoming, but then also parts of it that feel like, actors being actory.
I'm saying 7.5.
I also said that.
You said 6.5. Do you want to change it?
No, I'll say 7.5. Yeah.
Okay, so we're both saying 7.5.
There's a lot of value here, I think. But
value. Did you mean to do that?
I did not, but you have to wade through some other stuff to get there. Okie doke. Well, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you should totally be checking out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay, kicking off our season 2 recaps of Ted Lasso. And also next week, our subscribers voted on which classic film from the late Richard Donner we would be discussing. We'll be reviewing the Donner cut of Superman 2. So check that out. exclusively for our subscribers. Until next time, bye.
Bye.